Welcome to HP Midweek. I was thinking back in the last few days about my childhood for whatever reason. And one of my favorite childhood memories is when our family would gather together for family devotions at night. Now, it wasn't necessarily one of my favorite times then, but looking back, it's one of the things and times that I've cherished the most. We didn't do it every night because my dad traveled a lot. But my parents thought it would be good to do it as often as we could. And they required that each of us memorize a Bible verse and be prepared to recite it word for word every night at our family devotions. And there were some kind of instances that are memorable in my family devotions, and I thought I might share a few of them with you today. You know, there's only so many times in that setting that your parents will let you get by with Jesus wept. Jesus wept. You know, my brother would go first, my older brother. Jesus wept. Okay, Jimmy, your turn. Jesus wept. Then my little sister. Jesus wept. After the first week, we were no longer allowed to use Jesus wept anymore, no matter how well we made our case that this verse has actually changed our lives. So we had to get a little bit less lazy, a little bit more creative. Now, I grew up before the internet was really a thing. So we couldn't just go search online and find a verse quickly. If we didn't want devotional time to be absolutely boring, we had to kind of peruse through the Bible and pick out a few choice, helpful nuggets for the evening. So here's a few of them. On one particular night, I suppose that my sister had been getting frustrated with me and getting annoyed with me. So she came prepared one night with a Bible verse from Job 13:5, and she quoted it looking straight at me. If only you would be altogether silent, for you that would be wisdom. I didn't really much appreciate that, but it worked for her. Now, my dad was a preacher, and he was usually a pretty good one. But one particular time, I thought he was being unusually long and boring. So that night in our devotions, I thought it would be fitting to remind him of this particular verse from the book of Acts. As Paul spoke on and on, a young man named Eutychus, sitting on the windowsill, became very drowsy. Finally, he fell asleep and dropped 3 stories to his death below. I was just trying to help my dad. I was trying to warn him that might happen to him if he doesn't shorten it up just a little bit. Of course, my dad was always an easy target to pick on. He seemed to handle it pretty well and go with the flow. My dad was bald. He had just enough hair around the fringes to make him feel good about himself. He cared more about that hair around the fringes of his head than a woman does who has hair all the way down to her waist. It's always kind of fun to make fun of your parents. And my dad's baldness was an easy target. So my dad apparently had enough of it one night. So in his time to share, he busted out this beautiful, inspiring verse, 2 verses actually from 2 Kings. It said, from there Elisha went up to Bethel. As he was walking along the road, some boys came out of the town and jeered at him. Get out of here, Baldy, they said. Get out of here, Baldy. He turned around, looked at them, and called down a curse on them in the name of the Lord. Then 2 bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the boys. My dad said, don't make fun of me again. My dad, another one that he would quote more than one occasion. He always did it to be fun. But he came prepared one time with his verse. It was from Proverbs chapter 27. A nagging spouse is like the drip, drip, drip of a leaky faucet. You can't turn it off and you can't get away from it. One of his favorite verses. Another one of my dad's favorite verses to quote. Better to live out in the desert than with a nagging, complaining wife. Now, he was simply trying to be funny, and it was very funny to us kids. But Mama failed to find the humor in that. My brother liked to get in on some of these creative scriptures. One night, one occasion, my mom was having a tough time grocery shopping. I don't remember all the details of what happened, but somebody was agitating her and bothering her, and there were people driving her crazy. So a night or two later, my brother, in an attempt to help my mom, trying to make her feel better, doubtful, but that's what he said, quoted the Apostle Paul. He said, "I wish that those who are upsetting you would castrate themselves." My mom liked that one. When I was a kid, it always seemed really noisy in the morning time. I liked, and I still like actually to this day, I like quiet in the morning time. I don't want to be bothered until I'm fully awake. So I was quite happy when I stumbled onto this verse, also from Proverbs. It says, "He who blesses his friend with a loud voice early in the morning, it will be reckoned a curse to him." Only if I had the power to reckon a curse on those who are loud in the morning, my life would be beautiful. One particular morning at breakfast, my mom's eggs were not really to my brother's liking. So that night at devotions, he reads from Job chapter 6. "How tasteless is the uncooked white of an egg. My appetite is gone when I look at it. I gag at the thought of eating it." He actually quoted that numerous times, and he got away with doing it. My mom countered. A night or two later, she found something that she thought was very apropos for my brother. It came from Deuteronomy chapter 21. And these verses say, "If someone has a stubborn and rebellious son who does not obey his father and mother, will not listen to them when they discipline him, his father and mother shall take hold of him and bring him to the elders at the gate of his town. They shall say to the elders, 'This son of ours is stubborn and rebellious. He won't obey us. He's a glutton and a drunkard.' Then all the men of his town are to stone him to death. You must purge the evil from among you." So my mom was trying to purge my evil brother from among us. It didn't work. He always came back armed with something else. I don't know if you've ever wondered if certain things were actually in the Bible or not, but when I was a kid, I always wondered if when I get to heaven, assuming I got there, if there'd be baseball in heaven. And I lamented the fact one day to my mom. I said, "I really want to go to heaven, but if they don't have baseball there, I'm afraid it's going to be boring." So my mom that night quoted. She said, "Of course there's baseball. It says it right here in Scripture, the very first verse of the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heaven and earth. In the beginning." So apparently baseball got God's creative juices flowing, and she used that to kind of help me. Now, I've often tried to find some biblical justification for my love of coffee. And somebody reminded me that there was a whole book in the Bible dedicated to coffee. It's called Hebrews. That was funnier probably in my head than it is when you received it. Did you know that there's only one state mentioned in the Bible? And my friends that live in this state like to remind me of this. There's only one state mentioned in the Bible. Arkansas. We know this from Genesis chapter 8. "And Noah looked out of the ark and saw." Okay, I know those are corny. Like those are corny. I grant you that. But maybe we need a little bit more corn in our lives. As a matter of fact, look at this from Genesis 42. "Then Joseph gave orders to fill their sacks with corn." I'm just trying to fulfill the biblical mandate to fill your sacks with corn. So that's why I'm a little bit corny right there. You've probably heard the phrase, cleanliness is next to godliness. Is that really in the Bible, though? You ever stop and think about that? I mean, I do use it to get my kids to take a bath, but is it in the Bible? Not exactly. We're told that we must have a clean heart. But in order for us to have a clean heart, someone else has to get dirty. Jesus came to live in our murky world. He washed the dirty feet of the disciples. He walked the dusty, dirty road on his way to Mount Calvary. Jesus got dirty so that we could get clean. Is cleanliness next to godliness really in the Bible? Yes, And no, we need clean hearts, but we need dirty hands in order to be a blessing to the world. Thank you for tuning in to HP Midweek. Have a great week.